Hey guys, it's JC's Reborn Journey here, and in this video I wanted to specifically discuss grief and bipolar disorder, so we can all get a better understanding of how someone who may be grieving a loss, how it affects them differently with someone that has a mood disorder than one that is just doesn't, and they grieve differently. So I'm trying to do my research, but I'm actually going to share it with you guys so we all can get a better understanding of everything, right? So then you can understand kind of like where I'm coming from. So I do have bipolar disorder, and I am transgender, and I have a lot of other problems like OCD, starting an eating disorder, which is not good, and which I've always been a picky eater, but this is just intensified, and the dysphoria did that, and I think the OCD is kind of playing, they're all just playing a role into everything, yeah, that's really what I had to say. What I really want to do is read this to you. I am dyslexic, so bear with me. Very dyslexic. I usually have things read to me, but I don't know if you guys would understand what the app is saying, because sometimes I don't, but it reads it faster than I would. But this might give a better understanding for all of us. So it says death and the mood and swinging mood, grieving when you have bipolar. So I always like to, if there's a problem, I like to fix it. So in order to fix it, I always do research. I am always researching something. Every day. And I'm probably still going to die stupid, but at least I learned what I could. And that's probably why I'm smarter than some of these doctors that I have to go to. Okay, so losing someone you love is one of the hardest things a person can go through. But what if you have bipolar disorder? Now, just so you know, people used to hate in high school and in school me reading out loud. So not as bad as back then, but still bear with me. But what if you have bipolar disorder? Death affects people with mood disorders in different ways. It lost someone very close to me this past week, along with others since I began this blog. So this is just talking about this person who's writing it, which is why I want to touch on some important elements of grieving when you have a mood disorder. So, emotions plus stress equal trigger central. Normally, people go through 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Of course, there are, I can't read that word for everyone, so probably they don't go all through the same stages at the same time, blah blah blah, right? I guess that's what it's trying to say. And not every person follows the textbook definition of how to be in each stage. Usually, in healthy minded folks, they kind of just run their course naturally. Someone with a mental illness, specifically a mood disorder such as bipolar or unipolar depression, may experience certain stages more intensively or much longer than average, causing triggers which lead to an episode of depression symptoms, severe depression, irritability, irrational thinking / behavior, drug and alcohol abuse, and suicidal tendencies are some common symptoms triggered by death. See? I know I mentioned in past posts that so I need to know if we need to let me see, the funeral mania phenomenon. Funeral mania, yes. What is it? Funeral mania, when someone's reaction to a death or a funeral is a manic episode instantly or within a week of bereavement. So I struggled for the first week or so. I think that's basically what I wanted to just tell you. I don't think I have to read through all of this. Let me just see what this is. So, I have absolutely experienced funeral mania. In fact, I almost became... When I read... Okay. I'm just trying to... Okay, hospice. And I lost... Okay, so her father was in hospice. Okay, I was his caretaker during the last two months of life. Closer to the end, I never slept. I spent hours at his empty apartment organizing books, blah blah blah, perfect to place before he had to turn the keys in. Okay. And okay, so just so you guys can get an idea for me, because I'm not going to keep reading this. This is just talking more personally and blah blah blah. And let me see something else. As we know, mood stabilizers work hard to prevent you from sinking to something or flying above the clouds. So, like, it's either your highs or your lows. So up in the clouds is like really high, which I'd rather be, but then you crash, and when you crash really hard. So I don't really want to be there. Not too heavy, not too sad. Okay. I take my meds every day and night. Achieve this. So this is my feeling about medication, just so you guys are aware, and that's why I'm trying to work really, really hard. One, it's not that I'm accepting anything, but I need to accept the fact that it's not going to happen overnight. So, working through it. Two, as you see, that it's more intensified for me, which I definitely feel that. I'm also going through other things as well, and obviously we know suicidal tendencies have already happened this week. The drug stuff has already happened. I was very irrational thoughts and behaviors. I guess the irrational behavior, which would be the suicidal tendencies, or just, yeah. Alright, so we'll just go with the yes for that one. And, what was the other one? I don't remember. Like irritability. I've been very I've had a lot of anxiety. It's not just because of Dennis's death. It's just because of everything. And let's talk a little bit about what I went through. So for some of you guys know that last October, Dennis and I moved to North Carolina. It was a very quick decision. It was a very fast move. I packed and packed and packed and packed and packed for 16 hours a day until it was done. And we were good to go. You know, we got some help from family financially so we can move and get started. And they were really happy for us. And we were really happy and all that stuff. So we get there, everything's good, we get our apartment, we like our apartment, we got a storage unit so we didn't have to keep all our stuff in the apartment. We were planning on staying down there for a year, making sure that we liked it, looking around in different areas, and our goal was to be able to buy a home. That was the goal. So, nobody really knows that That's actually the first time I've talked about that. I don't even know how much my family knows about what our plans were in that aspect, other than we wanted to move. My idea was that we were going to try and find a double wide trailer on its own land that really looked like a home and was nice. Even if we had to do some fixer-ups, we were like I could see us living there. The only thing is that we couldn't do it unless we were together, like financially, and we didn't think that anything, we didn't think anything about it. Like, we went to the doctors, one last time, making sure everything was good, blah, 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 and, obviously there's only so many tests you can do, like a blood test, that's it. And so we're down there, we're enjoying ourselves. He was glad that we moved. He wished we moved years ago. Our favorite restaurant was the Red Lobster down there. And my friend, him and his girlfriend were homeless for quite some time. And I didn't really give Dennis the decision. I just said, my friend and his girlfriend, they're going to come and stay with us for a little bit. If I had known he was going to get sick, I probably wouldn't have done that. There are certain things down there that I really feel bad. I thought we had time. We were going to go and do stuff, and, he would stay home and relax and whatever. And then, my friend and his girlfriend, they were really, their immune system was shot because they were sleeping in the car for over like a month or two, and we allowed them to stay in our place, just so they had a roof over their heads and food in their bellies, and they paid for their own food, or they got food stamps to be able to do that, and they even helped us out too with that. But because their immune system was so shot, they got sick, and a week later, or a week or two later, they got Dennis and I sick. And then we were sick for a week, and then we were feeling better for a week, and then all of a sudden Dennis started feeling sick again. But it wasn't like, oh my god, I'm sick, I'm coming down with a cold again. It was more like he was starting to have the symptoms, like having trouble breathing, having a hard time getting to the bathroom, and he's only 5 steps away. Like, our bed was right where the bathroom was, and I really liked our apartment. We had a washing machine, we enjoyed our tub, the shower, the bathroom was nice. Our apartment, as you can tell, that apartment, if you looked at that apartment in this apartment, you'd like it better too. Plus I had a neighbor that became friends. Dennis didn't really like her, whatever, but it was fine. Like, he didn't, I think for Dennis, it was kind of good for me to have a friend, because I wouldn't sit there and bother him all day, so it was nice to be able to just, but I wouldn't leave long, and I didn't like that idea of leaving him and stuff. But so he got sick. He wasn't, I kept telling him, I'm like, Dennis, we can go to why do you suffer like this, I kept giving him his nebulizer treatment. It seemed to help, but he was waking up at night, and day by day was going by, and I'm like, dude, we need to do something. So I said, we can either go to the hospital, or we can go and see a lung doctor, a lung specialist. I'm like, I really don't care if it costs money or not, we just need to do this. So, I really didn't like them. I think that they, we went and we saw them that day, and they ordered x-rays, and they saw something on the x-ray and never told us, never called us and told us anything. We had scheduled a breathing test. So if you saw something on the x-ray, why wouldn't you call us and tell us that it would be important for you to probably go to the emergency room? So, that was a Tuesday that we went there. So he's already been sick for a week. He's already was having a hard time breathing for over a week. We had started the nebulizer again. It seemed to, but I told Dennis, I said, you could have a walking pneumonia and not even realize it. And the only reason why I knew that is because I think when you have pneumonia once in your life, you're more susceptible to have it again, I think. I don't know. I'm taking that guess. But I knew when he was younger, he had pneumonia before. So I told him, I'm like, we have to figure this out. And I don't really even, just watching him suffer was hard, but I can't even imagine how hard it was to he couldn't breathe. I mean, that was the problem. And he was so stubborn, and I'm angry with myself because I knew he was sick, and I should have called the shots. I should have called an ambulance. I should have just, and my friends really weren't being supportive. They were kind of assholes about it, and, they were smokers, and they were giving us a hard time because, I made them, spray themselves every time they come in. You can't smell like cigarettes, and, they were, having a hard time because Dennis couldn't sleep and was having trouble breathing, and I'm just like, he was even having trouble in the shower because of the steam, and it was, so I regret not just going to the ER sooner, but there's nothing we can do about that now. What did happen was we went that Tuesday, we went and we got the x-ray. He struggled to get to Friday because Friday was the breath test, and we almost did not make it to that appointment. And you could tell he couldn't breathe, and we couldn't even do the stress test. Like, he's like, I can't do this. I told him on the way to that doctor's appointment, I said, this has now been going on for 2 weeks. I'm like, at this point, you have no choice. Today, we are going to resolve the issue, whether you like it or not. We are getting you help. And he did agree with me, because I think he was tired of feeling so sick. Again, like I said, I'm angry with myself that I didn't notice the signs sooner. Or I did notice the signs, but didn't, And I gotta tell you guys, when you don't have money, and you're always afraid of co-pays, and you're avoiding to see the doctors because of that, bad fucking move. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. There's nothing they can do to you that's worse than dying. Or putting yourself in more danger, because that's exactly what happened to Dennis. So, we went to the doctor's office, and then they told us, we weren't supposed to see the doctor, but, he couldn't do the breath test, and the nurse went to get the doctor, and then the doctor did want to see us. And we went in the room, and he's the one that told us about, he's like, we see a mass, or we see something on the x-ray, and that we want you to, go to the ER. And I'm like, we were planning on going there anyways, whether you said it or not. I was a little angry that they didn't call us sooner, because we wouldn't have waited till Friday. We would have gone Tuesday. So I was a little upset about that. So we go over to the ER, which is right across the street, which was nice. It was just like, they were all like right there. And what I liked about this ER only is because they took you right in. A lot of times you'll be sitting there waiting, but I guess it depends on your situation. And I don't know exactly what we said, because we didn't know all the symptoms he had yet, but it was just that he was having trouble breathing, and they took him right in because of that. And they hooked him up to everything, and I don't know what is, you know. But his heart rate was high. And the doctors and the nurses, and they were all working on him, and I'm like trying to figure out what's going on. And they were saying that, you know, he's an AFib, that his heart rate's too high, we have to bring it down, you know, because I wanted to know all the medicine they were giving him and stuff like that. Now, the other thing that happened was, so to back up just for a moment, before we moved, I asked Dennis almost every day, you know, if you want to see your kids, now's the time to see your children. Now's the time to tell your children before we go. He did not want to tell them until after we moved because he didn't want them to stop him from moving or give him a hard time. He just didn't want to hear it. He's like, they never called, they never come up, they never come by. Why are we suffering in a trailer that's killing us? Which is exactly what that trailer was doing. So we moved, and I guess the day that we moved, one of the neighbors that was there knew one of his kids and basically ratted us out, which I'm so happy we're out of that place if that's the way, you know, to be spied on. That's just wrong. But our two good neighbors that were right next door to us were cool about everything. Speaking of that, I need to actually go over there and say hello again. Let them know how I'm doing. Not well, right? But I can talk about Dennis with her because they knew Dennis. So, anyways, so when we moved on our way down to North Carolina, so his kids didn't know we left out of state. They didn't know we left. They didn't know where we were. Nothing. Nobody actually knew. My friends didn't know. Nobody knew. They just knew we were moving. Nobody knew our address. I left it that way. On our way down there, his kids were like blowing up the phone, and I kept it off because it was just like a spare, like not a spare, but like we didn't need to be bothered. Like, we'll answer if we want to. And I kept turning, oh no, you know what it was? It was a spare. So we did have phones, and it was a spare, and we gave people the number to that just to not hear it from anybody. So it was just a temporary phone just to, like, you know, give us enough time to tell them what they want to hear or what they needed to hear. So because they weren't getting an answer or anything, you would think that if it goes straight to voicemail that the phone is just off. Like, that's what it usually indicates. But so the phone was getting blown up, and they were saying some pretty harsh, nasty things about me, like basically, like, I took their dad away from them, and how dare you, and they were really violent about it, like, they were very abusive. How's that for an answer? Dennis was actually getting upset because Dennis and I had a very open relationship, and I don't keep anything from him, so I'm not going to sit there and read something that his kids are saying. I was reading it out loud so we can hear it together. And the things they were saying was really upsetting him because they're talking about his girlfriend. And yes, we were girlfriend and boyfriend at that time. And they called the police and reported him missing, and that made him bullshit. He was pissed. He's like, I'm an adult. I can do what I want, when I want, how I want, when I feel like doing it, and I don't need to answer to anybody. He wanted, I mean, you gotta understand, that was a really stressful situation for him to move so far away and change and all that stuff, and then to not have support from his family and his kids, so he wanted nothing to do with them. So we had to go to the police station, tell them the situation, blah blah blah. We don't want anybody knowing where we are because of the way they acted. And once that happened, I was getting really concerned, and Dennis and I, we decided that it would be best for us to try and get power of attorney of each other because we weren't married. But even when you're married, I guess you need these things in place. So down there, they have power of attorney. But the attorney that we saw was saying, well, you actually have nothing, so you just really need medical power of attorney, but it was better than nothing. What we really needed was dual power of attorney, but I don't know when you leave one state to another if it can follow you, because up here you just need a healthcare proxy, which is, I guess you can say, better because it's cheaper. Like, it doesn't cost you anything. You just say, okay, this is my healthcare proxy, blah, blah, blah. It's just a piece of paper and you're done. So it works better that way. And even if you're married, you still need a healthcare proxy up here. And I think that's probably in all states. So, where was I? So the same week that we moved, our hands were forced to do the healthcare power of attorney. So that means that Dennis was in sound mind, I was in sound mind, and we were talking about our wishes and what we want if we were in these certain situations, and that I had power of attorney or medical power of attorney, so I could make medical decisions if Dennis was unable to do that. Same for me, he was able to do it for me. And then we added my mom as a secondary in case something happened to the both of us. So we had somebody to care for the both of us. So we didn't think that he was going to get sick or we were going to need it or any of that, but we did that so his kids couldn't. That's really why we did it, was so his kids couldn't try and say, well, you know, my dad's not in sound mind and this person's crazy and took my dad away, you know, like, he's not in a safe environment, blah, blah, blah. So we didn't want to have any problems, and we did that, so there were no questions. It was a good thing we did. So remember, everything happens for a reason. Because when he got sick, we needed that in order for them to even talk to me. You know, we let them know that I am his girlfriend and I have medical power of attorney and here's the paperwork and blah, 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 blah. So, that was a lifesaver down there. Dennis was so sick, he was in the hospital for 13 days to start. From December 16th until the 28th of December. So we spent Christmas there. We found out that he had lung cancer on his left lung. That was most of the bottom lung. And he had AFib. His kidneys were failing, or he was having kidney issues, so he had a whole kidney team. He was on a intermediate intensive care unit cardiac floor. So I can tell you in that aspect, that hospital was definitely better for that. Whether the doctors knew what they were doing is another story, but the actual hospital setting and the stuff, and even the food was better. Anyways, he wouldn't eat. So he was also experiencing that a couple weeks before he did get sick, which was, I can't remember how long it was for, but it was only for like maybe a month or 2 weeks, where he kind of really just lost his appetite. Nothing tasted good. We just thought that because we both didn't like the food down there, that it was the food down there. We didn't really know that it was because of the cancer. So he had AFib, he had cancer, he only had 20%, he had congestive heart failure. So the problem that we were having was whether he had cancer or not, he was going to die. And it was just a matter of when. So it was really like a fuck you for us. So the first time he was in the hospital there, obviously I'm in contact with my family. My family loves Dennis and, obviously loves me, but I think they love Dennis more. Dennis was just so lovable. And, we are so many miles away. Now, nobody did come and, be with us. But, I needed their help getting us back up closer to home. Because now I was thinking, okay, this man, no matter what, he is going to die. there's no reason for me to be somewhere after he dies without support. Like, I knew that I needed to think about everything. I needed support for Dennis medically that I could do. We needed our doctor that we knew, he knew him, all that stuff. We needed to be in an area that we could get to, and we needed to be near my family. Not so much Dennis's family. They would not, if we asked them to help, they probably wouldn't have, because we really just needed financial support, and they wouldn't or couldn't do it. It's just always excuses. So anyways, when Dennis was sick in December, I asked him, when he got sick, the day we were there, and we found out he had cancer, I asked him if he would like me to call, his children and let them know. And he was like, no. He was like, absolutely not. He's like, I want to make my own decision, and I want to do what I want to do without them, stressing him out. That's basically what it was. And I agreed with him. I'm like, they stress me out too, and if I'm stressed out, I'm stressing Dennis out, and that's not good for him. So he made that decision, and I told him that if you ever change your mind and you want me to call them, I will. Like, of course I would do that for you. And he didn't want to. He did not care. And I don't feel bad either, because, I have nothing to do with Dennis and his children's relationship. You want to have a relationship with your father want to have a relationship with you, you guys are the ones that need to do it, not me. I have nothing to do with it. I am just there to love Dennis, and that is it. That's not my job. So, so that's on them, not on me. That's on Dennis, not on me. And, Dennis was really sick. He wanted to die. Like, he was like, I don't want to be resuscitated. He was really, really sick. And I think he was really sick there because they didn't really treat him with the right medication. So it made him sicker. I mean, he needed morphine. That's how sick he was. And he wanted to die for like 2 days. Like, that's how bad he felt. And he had pneumonia. And that's what was like kicking his ass. So 13 days in the hospital, wouldn't eat. I was struggling to get him to eat. I'm like, you have to at least have an Ensure. And he just started losing weight really quickly. And getting sicker because he wasn't eating. And he even had an ulcer in his stomach, or below his stomach, or whatever. So it was like one thing after another. It's like, come on, can't we just leave already? Like, can't you just fix him so we can go? That wasn't the case. So we leave on the 28th, and 2 days later we end up back in the hospital. And we're there for 2 more days. And, so the first hospital stay, when my family found out, they were already in the process. They're like, okay, we're going to try and help you and see what we can do to get you, back up here and how. So, I can't go into detail in that aspect. All I can tell you is that my family, more than one, not just Mom, but my family, came together, and whoever was able to do what they needed to do to help us. Mom helped with paperwork, blah, 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 so we didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. And, I was really fighting to get back up here. I'm like, we can't wait. We needed to, Dennis was the one that drove down there, and I couldn't take a truck and my truck and drive back up. So we needed a moving company, and that was a lot of money. And they're like, well, we should just wait another month. And I'm like, Dennis doesn't have a month to wait. We weren't even going to get our our apartment until closer to the end of February. And I said, I don't care. I won't pay. I said, we're not going to pay the rent. We're not going to pay, we'll have the rent money. We're not going to pay any of the bills in just February, and we're just going to have that money to get a motel or hotel, or whatever we got to do it. So in January, once we got home, I started packing. Then we're in the hospital 2 days later, and then I had about 2.5 weeks to pack and get everything ready to go. And I did. I think I packed our house in less than a week, and I packed down there. Now, on top of packing, I had to care for him. He was a very, 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 very sick at that point, and I was very worried about him. He was also a diabetic at that point. When we got admitted the first time, they said, you know what, he's a full diabetic. I'm like, I thought he just had pre-diabetes, but nope, he was now a diabetic, so we had to do insulin, and we had to do this, and we had to do that, and all that stuff. So another thing that we were having a tough time with is that down there, the insurance was different. So even though it was Medicare, it was still different. And the medicine, we weren't able to get his medication that he needed so desperately. And up here, we don't have that problem. So that's why I knew it was really desperate for us to get back up there. It would have cost more money staying down there. So on the 31st of... So, let me just tell you this. So, I started educating myself and understanding Dennis so I could take care of him better. So, when we left the hospital the first time, I got the oxygen sensor and the blood pressure cuff and the whatever we needed, and had a book and wrote the date and the time, and wrote what his oxygen was, what his blood pressure was, what his his heart rate was. And that thing was an awesome indicator, because when he started going into AFib. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. We're looking at 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160. And when he went into 130s, and it stayed up there for, we'll just say a good, if he wasn't getting out of AFib in 24 hours, we would take him in. And we were struggling with this for 3 weeks. We go in and out and in and out, and then all of a sudden again he went back into AFib and couldn't come down. And I told him, I'm like, I'm really worried about you. And I said, I know that our new insurance, so what I did was I had already transferred our insurance, so February he had the insurance for up here instead of down there. And he on the 31st of January, I thought he was gonna die. I said, okay, we need to get you, we're leaving on the 3rd, which is in 3 days. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable driving you that long and that amount of time and then something happening to you. I'm like, you're not doing well, your heart rate is still high. And what we did was whatever we had left that we were going to give to my friend, because we had to get rid of a lot of stuff, everything else was all set and ready to go for the people to pick it up. And I'm like, we're good to go, we have everything done, we're just waiting for these people to And I said, we're going to go to the hospital after we go to my friend's house. So we went 20 miles out of town, which luckily nothing happened to him there. And I didn't stay long. I said my goodbyes or whatever because we knew we were leaving. And we went and we ate at Red Lobster one last time. And I said, after we go to Red Lobster, we're going to go to the hospital. That was the plan, and that stayed the plan. And he was, I think he was already on oxygen at that time, but we were kind of like, you know, do you really need it? You know, like, I don't know, I think we had left it in the car, and he was saying he felt lightheaded, and I went and I grabbed it, and I gave it to him, and whatever, and we paid, we left, and we went to the hospital, told them what was going on. They got him right in again. I mean, I think they kind of knew who he was at that point. So this is the third time we're in the hospital. And we get into the ER, and less than literally a half an hour of us being in the hospital altogether. So like they go and he does the blood pressure and stuff at the beginning over there, and then they bring him over to there, and then they're you know, the doctor came right in and they were talking, and they checked him and whatever, and they were going to give him amiodarone, and they go to put the amiodarone on, and he was just like, how do I explain this? It was the scariest moment of my life with Dennis. Scarier than his death. He wasn't even able to tell you. Like, he was sitting up and he was just like, you know, like this, and then all of a sudden he just collapsed and passed out. And we don't really know what exactly happened. They weren't able to, but what I got pissed about was that, you know, I'm not in your way. You know, I backed away. I let them do their job. I didn't say anything. I was freaking out, of course. Who wouldn't? But I was freaking out in the corner, away from everybody, not, you know. I'm like, Dennis, you can't do this. I'm like, you can't die before, I mean, we're moving in 3 days. Come on, man, you know. And the one good thing I can tell you is that he was starting to get conscious before he left me, and I was just telling him I loved him, and it's okay, buddy, and that kind of stuff. But to witness that all by yourself with no family, no support, no anything, no nothing, and then you have these two people stopping you from going with them, and that set me off big time. Like, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not gonna be in your way. I'm not asking you to, like, you know, but you could have just let me sit in a corner or something so I can be with him, so when he came to. And he, I guess, went into like a different part of the ER where it's like closed, because it's like almost like that emergency, like they have like 30 people working on somebody. So they, and you know, I guess they have their own way of dealing with things. I think it sucks, but whatever. They have to do their job and they have to do what they need to do. But Dennis and I are never apart, and that was like really hard. Like, I was having panic attacks and anxiety attacks because now, like, the man that I love, I don't want him to die without me there, you know? And that was the biggest thing. And it was literally just 5 minutes. The doctor comes right in, and he's like, and she's like, he's already asking for you. So, they took me right back in and saw him, and I do have pictures of him in that situation. Not that part, but when I went in there, I have pictures of him after he woke up and stuff. But it's hard for me to see those, because he was so sick. So he ends up obviously getting admitted because I wouldn't leave, I wouldn't let him go home at that point. And remember when I told you earlier that everything happens for a reason? Well, I was concerned about, like, the movers were going to pick our stuff up on the 2nd, and we weren't moving or leaving until the 3rd. We needed our money to move, or to leave. And, because we needed the money to go into the bank account, and we needed to close the bank account there and take all the money out. So, that was stressful for me. On top of that, $700 went missing, but I did find that money later on, but it was a little too late for when we needed it. Anyways, and it took me a while to tell my parents that because I was trying to find it, but I did find it, so I was happy to find $700 later on. That's what you gotta do. You just gotta, hide $100 all around, and you'll find it later. But anyways, so what the fuck? So my big thing is that's why I was I didn't mind him being in the hospital, because at least I knew he was being taken care of while we deal with the move, and this way we both had a place to sleep and not have to worry about where we were going to sleep, because what we were going to do. I mean, I was stressing that he wasn't going to have a place to sit in his own apartment and that kind of stuff. So like I said, everything happens for a reason. So it made it a little less, it was stressful, but at the same time, it was less stressful because he wasn't staying home alone. He wasn't, he was being cared for. I was just really afraid that he was going to die while I was not there, which was stressful. So right from the beginning, I told the doctors, I'm like, listen, I said, we are leaving on the 3rd. I'm like, and we need to try and get him well enough so we can leave on the 3rd. I'm like, if it ends up being a couple more days, I'm okay with that. But we're not going to be staying here for 13 days. Not happening. And, when he got admitted, I called the PCP, and I said, this is what the plan was. He is in the hospital right now, but I need to make an appointment with you. I asked him for, oncology doctors and heart doctors and lung doctors, which I did like his lung doctor, by the way. And his heart doctor. I liked all his doctors up here, actually. And so did Dennis, but I liked, some more than others than he did. I don't know. I think I bond better with people than he does, but he did like his PCP, and he just likes to shoot the shit with everybody, but he really liked his oncology doctor, and he liked his PCP, the whole team, pretty much. So I was stressing and making as many phone calls as I could, making appointments. Okay, thank you. We'll see you then, and blah blah blah. And the reason why I was doing that was because that way the hospital would be more they're like, okay, well, he has an appointment on this day for the, I was just like, we have PCP, we have heart, we have oncology, we have everything. We're all set, ready to go. And I felt that they would be more comfortable with that. I think they thought the ride would be a little much for him, but at the same token, they thought driving was safer for him than taking an airplane. That would have been unsafe because you'd be 30,000 feet up in the air, and if you're having a problem, you'd be in a lot of trouble. At least down when you're on the road, you can go to the nearest emergency room, wherever that is, right? So they agreed, but then I think they made him put like this V-fib vest on. They called it like a bra or whatever, and that was probably not a good idea, just because Dennis's heart wouldn't have been able to take that. And when we got up here, they didn't even know what the heck this device was, and didn't fight us about not wearing it. They're like, yeah, whatever, you don't need that. They were just like, nah. Yeah, I think even his heart doctor was just like, we don't know what that is, whatever. I would say that would be for somebody who is maybe a little younger or had a better chance of survival, but when you only have 20% of your heart function because you have congestive heart failure, you're seriously in a lot of trouble. Like, you shouldn't be shocked. You should just be able to die peacefully. So on top of all this, I'm concerned that this man's gonna die like any second. You know, it was stressful, and on top of this, we were gonna be homeless for 3 weeks. So I had made arrangements with a hotel to stay there for, I even made that arrangement. I found one that was close to my mom's work. It was near where my mom lived, and sad part, it wasn't close enough to the hospital we needed to be at. So it was a better deal. It was a nicer room. It was, or I should say, it was more suitable for us because it was like just the way it was designed or whatever. It was just like more room. He could get into the bathroom, that kind of stuff. So we had paid. Sorry. Yes, I get jumpy. I apologize. So we paid for like 3 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks or something like that. Maybe 2 weeks. We used our money, and I think we paid until like the 21st. That's what it was. So we got there on the 6th of February, and we were gonna stay there till like the 21st. So we had a roof over our heads, and then we were gonna take it by ear. But it only took Dennis 5 days from the time we left the hospital. So the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, he was back in the hospital. So enough time to get us up here. The hospital up here and the unit we ended up on was a fucking nightmare. Stress. So now you're looking at the 4th hospital stay in less than 2 months. But at least we had my family support. I can't remember if they actually came to that hospital stay during. Oh yeah, I think my mom came and saw me once or twice there. Yeah, so we had support, which we liked. I liked that. Like, that was what we needed at that point. I don't think I could have done those 7 hospital stays without my family. And honestly, I don't care what his family says about this, but Dennis was more part of our family than he was of his own, and he really liked my parents, and they got along fine. I mean, I think that my parents sometimes had a hard time with Dennis, only because of his goofiness, and he's not serious, and it's hard to have a conversation with him unless you know him. Like, I don't know, I was really the only one that could really talk to him, or get him, or goof with him, or just know. But my stepfather really liked him. They got along great. They talked, whatever. But Dennis was also, he wasn't a sociable person, so he liked to listen more than socialize. But he enjoyed their company. And he, so he liked them. They got along, and he was part of our family for over 10 years. We did, Hanukkahs and Christmas, and Christmas. We did, my stepfather's Catholic, and Dennis is Catholic, so we would go to, my stepfather's sister's house, and Dennis liked it there. He liked the food. He liked Dennis. he liked it. It was a social thing that he liked. He enjoyed that. We, he was part of our family, and we did everything. When my brother got married, he came with us, and there were certain things that happened that I wish we could have, like, there were two things I remember that I wish he came to. Once was my grandfather's 80th birthday. I really wish Dennis was a part of that, and I don't know why we couldn't have accommodated that. That would have been nice. It would have been a nice time for him to enjoy. Instead, he stayed home without me, and that was stressful for me. I do better with my family when Dennis was with me. And we have Passover, and he learned he liked the cooking, the Jewish food, and you got Rosh Hashanah, so we were always, plus we would always, sometimes we'd go, birthdays, they'd take him out for his birthday, they'd take me out for my birthday. I mean, yeah, we were really all pretty close. And it was good for Dennis, like, to be able to be with people closer to his age, but to be able to be socialized, or sociable, whatever. And I noticed the older Dennis got, the more he tried to show his manhood. Like, I'm a man. Like, he was stubborn and wasn't like, no, I'm getting old and I need help. He was just like, no, I want to do that, and he would get excited when he got to do guy stuff or whatever. I don't know, fix something, but he really couldn't fix anything, but he would try and help whoever was fixing it, he wasn't always easy to deal with. Not me, like, I can deal with him, but some people, like, couldn't handle, dealing with his, like, it was like his way or the highway, I guess you could say, for some things, and whatever. But, anyways, going back to what was going on, so we ended up back in the hospital for a week. This was around Valentine. We got out on Valentine's Day. And when we were in the hospital that time, that week. So, literally, we get there on the 6th. On the 7th, we go to the SSI office to get the address changed. And we had to get, like, all the stuff together. So, we had to also do the banking stuff there. Not there, but you know what I mean. Like, we did the bank and we did, the Social Security office. And it was a good thing, because Dennis was too sick after that to do anything. And while we were there, we had nothing to lose at that point. He was a dying man. He was a ticking time bomb. I asked him, I'm like, about, how much money we can have in our accounts, and if living together is going to affect us in any way, and no, because you both have SSDI, and then, I'm like, so you mean but what if we were married? Would that affect us? And they're like, no, you could have $1 million in your account, you can, get married, and it's no big deal. And I'm like, really? And I look at him, I'm like, so you want to get married? We should have asked like 10 years ago. And he's like, yeah, what's that? And so, I forget what he said. He was being goofy about it, I think. Something about, I don't really know. He's like, well, if I have to, something like that. He was just goofing around. He's like, yeah, I think he said, oh, I have nothing, I have nothing to lose. He's like, yeah. And he, so I was like, all right, then we'll get married. We have nothing to lose. And I was happy that the lady told us that we could, neither of us were going to be affected, and that was awesome. And we were kind of mad that we didn't do this a long time ago. But I think the next day he gets sick and he ends up in the hospital. So it was a good thing we did that when we did, because I think that same day we ended up getting the joint bank account. That meant that we both had access to it, because I needed access to his money in case he got too sick and we needed his money to, because we need money to pay bills and need money, right? Like, it would be stupid not to have access to it. So we made it where it was joint and all that stuff. So Dennis was hospitalized for a week, as I told you, and he got out on the 14th. And he was still a very sick man. I guess well enough to be out of the hospital, but still sick. And honestly, he's such a baby. I think that he kind of, like, even though he tried giving me a hard time about it, I think he liked being pampered, kind of. Like, he was just like, yeah, whatever. But he was really sick, so. But I always babied him. He was such a baby. So I said to him, I'm like, tomorrow we'll have somebody stay with you, my brother stay with you, and I will go. Oh, and just so you guys know this, like, even though so here's the thing, we had to call 911 to go to the hospital, and when they tried to tell us that we would have to go to a different hospital, we said no, we'll go ourselves, and that's what we did, and that was like at 3 o'clock in the morning. So they were able to sign, he was able to sign a waiver saying, yep, we're going to, and they saw that he was well enough to be able to at least be transferred by car instead of by ambulance. So, because we needed to go to this hospital. Now, if I knew what was going to happen at that hospital, I probably would have just let him, but what happens is that if we go to this particular hospital, we're in the network. So what ended up happening is not only, remember, we had already paid for 3 weeks, I think. And I said, why are we going to keep paying if you're going to, and we don't know how long you're going to be in the hospital for. So I decided to go there, tell them what happened, get our money back, get all our stuff out of there. I just left everything in the car and, said, when he gets, discharged, we'll rent a hotel, like, closer to the hospital. And that's what we did. My stepfather helped us do that. Like, I told him, I'm like, all we need is the word that you're discharging him and we get a room. It doesn't matter where, it will be close to here. I think they were a little uncomfortable with the whole thing, but at the same token, I'm just like, dude, we have a place, we're just waiting to get into it, like, that's all it is. And as long as we're close to the hospital, it doesn't really matter where we are, as long as we have a roof over our heads, right? So, they were fine with it, we enjoyed it, we had to have nurses come by, I think once or twice a week or something like that. I guess Dennis scared one of them, because our PCP, which is my PCP too, he's like, I guess Dennis kind of scared him, because he swore. I'm like, he didn't swear at them, come on. I'm like, Dennis? I'm like, he's like, yeah, but you might need him again, so let's try not to, whatever. But even Dennis is just like, what the hell? I'm like, they can't handle a swear word from a dying patient. And like, I think you're in the wrong business, dude. Which is true, So he gets out the 14th. The 15th, my mom and I went to the town hall where we would be living. And because we thought we could like get married like that day, whatever. And it didn't work that way. So, and we also needed Dennis. Like, I couldn't just go and do whatever, but we really wanted to find out what was going on. So, my brother stayed with Dennis so he could relax and not travel, because that's pretty tough in a wheelchair. He was wheelchair bound. And, the sad thing for Dennis was, I don't know why he'd be like this. When someone else stayed with him, he would not ask for help. He wouldn't ask for a drink. He wouldn't ask to go to the bathroom. He wouldn't ask anything. And then when I get there, he, gets upset because he's either holding his pee or he's thirsty and he's waiting to ask me. So, yeah, he really needed me by his side 99.9% of the time. Like, I could not leave him that long. But anyways, we go to the town hall where we're at, and they didn't really have any scheduling and blah blah blah, and they're like, you know what, you should go to this other one. They have like a justice of the peace there, and they would be able to do it, because we would have had to find our own, and this way we were able to just do it there. So my mom and I go over there and tell them the situation and everything like that, and they were so sweet about it and really cool. And I'm trying to think, Mom did come with me there, and because I needed her help. I didn't know what I was doing. How the heck do you get married? Like, I don't know. So she helped me figure that out so we can do what we needed to do. And I guess the following day, so, you know, they said that this is what we needed to do. So the following day, Dennis and I went over there, and we had to do the paperwork, and they had to find out, like, who, you know, all our information, and his parents' name and mine, and blah blah blah, and if I was changing my last name or not. And I wasn't. I already knew not to, because, not that I knew not to, but one, I didn't want to, but two, I knew I was going to change it, because Dennis knew I was transgender, and he knew that, you know, I think he probably had an idea that I was going to, like, I already told him that I was going to legally change my name after. So he was already aware of that. And he also knew that I was going to transition, you know, at least by the time I was 40. So, it's just, by the time I am 40, I will actually be transitioned. So, but I told him what I was going to do. So, Dennis, so we went down and we did what we had to do. You know, no one forced his hands on that. He wanted to do it. And the reason why we got married was really to, there was a couple of reasons. So, like, if he lived for 9 months, I'd get his money instead of my money. We weren't really worried about that, because we didn't know how long he had, and I wasn't stressing about whether we were going to get that or not. That wasn't why. Another reason why is if you're married, doctors treat you differently, or we knew that we needed to do what we needed to do to prepare for the end, and being married was going to help us with that. And it was a very lucky thing that we did do it. His kids did not believe we got married, and we did. And we got married, and my parents, my mom and my brother and my sister and her friend, and I don't even know who else was there. And the lady that just as a piece, my mom wanted to be there. I wasn't even, like, me and him were just going to do it, but they wanted to make a big deal about it, and I'm like, whatever. And we do have video of that. And he's freaking goofy as ever. I mean, we actually had to do it right at the car. He didn't get out. We, you know, did it right there. And so, got married February 19th of this year. And also became his healthcare proxy. And it's a good fucking thing, because it did need to take effect eventually. I'm just going to go into detail of, like, what happened. I'm not really going to go into detail of feelings or regrets or any of that stuff. We're just going to say exactly timeline what happened. So, we get into our apartment on the 24th of February, and we had to rent a bed, and we ended up having to buy a TV, because I wanted to make it comfortable for Dennis. And, we, whatchamacallit, it took us almost a month. No, it did take us a month to get our stuff from the movers. So that was pretty hard for Dennis and I, because during March we were preparing for treatment. So we were doing testing, and we were doing this, and we were doing that, and we didn't have our stuff with us. So we were having to buy things that we might not have had to buy if we just had our stuff. I don't really agree with exactly everything that happened, but I don't think we usually do, but we had to do what we had to do. It was just very hard for Dennis not having his stuff with him, and he knows he's dying, and he wanted to go through his stuff, and he could have in March, because we were going to start treatment in April. And we got our stuff literally the week before chemo started. So he was almost admitted, or they wanted to admit him in March, but he was really doing okay. He just had I forget exactly what was going on there. I think his heart rate went up or something like that, and then, his heart rate was fine. I forget exactly what the deal was, but they wanted to admit him just for observation, and I'm like, we're going to the PCP tomorrow. Let's just, he doesn't need to be admitted. So we, I think, signed the paperwork to deny that from happening. So, or else he would have been admitted, and we did not want to go to the cardiac floor again. That was not going to happen. So we're doing testing, we're seeing doctors, I'm taking care of him, we're trying to enjoy, like, during March we were able to enjoy a little bit, like, he was starting to get better, a little better, and we were able to go out a little bit, or, go out for, try and just go out for a meal together, and stuff like that. And he was able to walk, he was starting to walk, and didn't need his oxygen anymore, and stuff like that. And then chemo started, and he started deteriorating from there. So we had chemo in April twice. Yep, chemo twice in April, one in May. He was going to have 4, but he got hospitalized after having his 3rd treatment. And again, he was in the hospital for another 13 days. So my birthday, was this May 6th, and I think he was having chemo the following week. And we just had my birthday here so we could make it easier for Dennis, and we got Chinese food, and we got him a soup that he could eat, and just enjoyed spending time with family and being with Dennis and in this small little apartment, and it worked, but whatever. So then he ended up in the hospital, and my family came and saw, and Dennis liked my stepfather, and they were, it was funny because when my stepfather and my mom had come, the nurse came in, and I was wondering what was wrong, and she was saying that his heart rate went up, like they wanted to see what was going on, and I go, oh, he got excited because he was talking about seaplanes. So that's what happened. He gets excited when he likes seaplanes, and they were talking about something that he enjoyed, and it got his heart rate up, and they got concerned, and I was like, no, he's good. But so again, I'm not talking about shoulda, coulda, woulda, or anything like that. We're just talking about exactly timeline. So he got out in June 1st. They wanted him to go into rehab. I told him that's not happening. That was a promise that we made to each other, that I was never going to put him in a nursing home or rehab. And he would die if he did go there. and we didn't want to be apart from each other either. So I asked, I didn't know how we were going to get home, and if I had known that he could have probably ended up going home by ambulance, I probably would have done it. But I had asked my cousin, who has a handicapped wife, if he could come and pick Dennis up so we can get him home safely. And he did, and he was so kind, and he did that. He was really a sweetheart for that, and I can't thank him enough for that. That was, Dennis wanted to go home at that point, so we did that. And, you know, during that time, we really felt really lost because nobody was calling to check and see how he was doing. I was having a really hard time with the nurses coming to the home. Like, you can't call. Here I'm up with Dennis all night long, and then we're sleeping, and you're expecting to come right now when we're sleeping. Like, you can't schedule this ahead of time. It was like, and it was like that time or no time, like, so I just didn't like the company we were with, and then we ended up switching to a different company, which I liked better, and we were ready to go with them, and literally saw them once, and Dennis was back in the hospital. So before he ended up back in the hospital the last time, that would have been his 7th time, his kids found where we lived, and one of them stopped by, and I actually wasn't going to allow him to come in, but knowing that it was one of his sons, and that Dennis hasn't seen his son Dennis in a really, really long time, I was okay with allowing him to come in. Do I regret that? The answer is yes, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So now all his kids think that they can come by anytime they want, see their dad every day. We need to see him. It's good for him. Not really, because now you brought germs into the home, to a man that just had a blood transfusion, to a man that has a low immune system and can't fight off anything. But the doctors know that I can be with him because I guess when you're with somebody, your germs are their germs. And I also wasn't kissing him, and, you know, and I wasn't going out. Everybody was coming. My family was so helpful. They were doing our laundry, and they were bringing us, you know, food that we needed, and nobody was staying here. You know, no one was, you know, come in, you out, gone. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You know, really trying to keep the germs out of here. And I knew that Dennis was not doing well. And at that point, I didn't know how long he really had. And I made that decision that if his kids did reach out to come and see him, that I was going to allow him, because I know that Dennis wanted to see his kids one last time. So it wasn't even Dennis's decision at that point. I made that decision for him. I knew that over the months that we were talking, that he, you know, had said that he would like to see them one last time, so I honored his wish. But I regret allowing them to come in the home because it got him sick. They'll deny it until their dying day, but by bringing germs into the home, he got pneumonia again. He couldn't even see, like, I guess kids were going to come that day, and I said, don't even bother because we're on our way to the hospital now. And I was trying to tell them, you know, I texted them, I'm like, we're at the hospital, and I'm just like, I will let you know what hospital we're at when we're ready to have visitors. I need to care for your dad. And they were fucking assholes and had to call every freaking hospital in the Boston area to find out where he was at. And I'm angry with the hospital because, one, the hospital sucked to begin with, but two, I specifically told the ER people not to allow any information being given out, and they did anyways. So poor Dennis needed me to, the next day, which was Friday, or, we went in that Thursday. So Friday, we, and by the way, they didn't put him on the right floor. They even put him with another patient, which was not appropriate for Dennis. And, I was able to, at least on Friday, get him into a private room. They knew he needed that at that point, and I fought to get him a private room. And I think probably after the doctors assessing him and the nightmare that was brought on that day. So I go to talk to the team, and they sit down with me and say, well, he's got his 8 children are downstairs. And I was just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I'm like, I need to take care of my husband and not deal with the stress that his kids put on both of us. And I knew that Dennis, he was really sick. I knew we were getting to that point of the end. And I was frustrated because it was a Friday, and I could have spent that Friday really focusing on Dennis's care. So poor Dennis was in, more pain, and he was very upset, and I had to supervise, and he's got 8 kids, and I'm not allowing 8 kids all up at once. They had to take turns. So we're going through like friggin' 6 hours of bullshit that if they just waited, they could have came the following day or even that night. But they didn't care. They just want to do what they want, and so be it. Whatever. And it was a big fiasco, and Dennis was really upset because I had to keep going downstairs and all this stuff, and even his kids noticed that he was stressed out, and one of his kids had to come down because it was a big episode with one of the kids, and I was trying to allow him to try and see his dad without me there, blah blah blah, and to allow him and his brother to go with him, and I allowed his kids to just tell him that because he obviously didn't want to hear it from me. And they went and they saw their dad, and he was asking for me, so they had to come back down and get me, and he was bullshit. He was so pissed that I wasn't there. Where were you? Where are you? Like, he just wanted me by his side. And at that point on, I knew that that's what I had to do, that I wasn't going to do that anymore, and it wasn't about anybody else. It was about him and I, and that was what we needed to do. I get angry with the doctors, though, because I was the one, here I needed to... So he's really sick, and Saturday comes around, and they're, I'm thinking palliative care because nobody's telling me anything, and we, now Sunday comes around, Dennis was in pain, I think, on he was uncomfortable. You can't, when someone's dying, you can't always tell if they're in pain, but they are. But he was having, like, he was having a hard time breathing, and blah, 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 and we thought it could be his heart, or whatever, and, they were trying to treat him, whatever, and, Sunday morning comes around, and I sat down with the doctor in Dennis's room, where he could hear, and I'm like, I need you to give it to me straight. I need you to tell me. I told him, I says, how can I make a decision for him if I don't know everything? I'm like, how long does he have? Like, do we think he has months to live and he could possibly get better? Or is he too far gone and there is no treatment for him anymore? And And I had to look at the doctor in the face and be like, you know, tell me. Like, I need to know so I can make the decision for him. And I can't if you're not telling me the truth and telling me everything. And he says, we think he has weeks to live. I said, thank you. Now let's do hospice. Just like that. I'm like, now I can make the right decision. I can't make a right decision. Why would I do palliative care if palliative care is not going to help him? If it's not, you know, if he's not there anymore. You know, and, so, they said, okay, and they stopped treatment, and, I was upset about that, and it was really hard for us to get any, you know, pain management for him, and he couldn't breathe, and all that stuff, and so they were going to go right ahead and get it started, and, shortly after, I go and I sit down with the woman that helps with picking out hospice and all that stuff, and I have a nice conversation with her, and she recommended one, and I liked this one because I guess there were 2 hospice groups in the Boston area that also have inpatient hospice, but you have to have a lot of qualifications in order to get in there. And we go into, or you know, this lady, I go, oh, okay, let's do that one, and I'm like, I think he needs inpatient hospice, so let's fight to get him that. And they agreed, and the doctors agreed, and everybody agreed that he needed inpatient and not home. And I didn't really want him home at that point, not because I couldn't care for him, but because I didn't want his children in my home anymore because of the behavior that I saw in the hospital. I'm like, I can't do that at home without other people there. So they wouldn't have been able to see their father anymore if he went home. And at that point, I needed to care for Dennis, and being home wasn't going to be caring for Dennis. And when Dennis was lucid, I asked him, and I said to him, I'm like, you know, we're going to go to an inpatient hospice where you can get the care that you need. And I said, does it really matter where you are? You know, I said, I want to do what you want, but does it really matter, you know, where you are as long as I'm with you? And I won't leave your side. Like, as long as I'm with you, do you care where you go? And he goes, no. He goes, as long as you're with me, he didn't care. He just wanted me by his side. That's all he cared about. So it was a struggle at the hospital. I was really bullshit with how they handled his care. Very sucky. People need to be a little bit more, there almost needs to be a unit for people in Dennis's situation where they're not sure if they're going to make it, or severe cases where, you know, hospice may come involved and you need a special team to deal with that and the family. So that's one sad thing that we don't have in this country, and I really hope that they fix that, because nobody should go through what we went through, where he was in pain and couldn't tell you he was in pain, and come to find out, like, because I guess I had asked the doctor, or told the doctor, that I needed, I guess in order for him to go into hospice, inpatient hospice, and for me to be able to have control, I needed the healthcare proxy to be something, so it, like, had to be in effect. And he goes, oh, that's already been in effect since yesterday. I go, okay. So that's what I get mad when there's, like, a nurse that tries and asks Dennis, in scale from 1 to 10, what's your pain? And he's saying he doesn't have pain, and he can't tell you he has pain or doesn't have pain. How's he supposed to know? I'm like, it's 10 o'clock at night. I just went and talked to the doctor. The doctor prescribed it. Give it to him. Why are you questioning it? So that was pretty hard. That was like, why are you gonna fight with me about it? Give him the medicine. And it did help to a point. So anyways, it's Sunday, and we got it set up where the nurse has to come and evaluate him and see him. And she comes in. I didn't really like her attitude. I didn't like her. She comes in. Now, you gotta remember, Dennis is now medicated, so he looks more comfortable. And she's, like, looking at him, and looks at his oxygen. Doesn't even really look at his chart. And me and her go into a private room, and she's like, he doesn't qualify. I go, well, then don't waste my time. I was done talking with her. I was very bullshit, and I put it this way, I don't take no for an answer, especially when it came to Dennis's care. And her behavior and her way of doing things was very poor. And I'm like, this is not happening. You know, I had called my mom and I told them that, you know, this person's trying to say he doesn't qualify, and I wasn't taking that as an answer. I'm like, I cannot take this man home. He is too fucking sick. So I called, I found a number somehow. I don't remember because it's all a blur a little bit. But I called the hospice team that we're supposed to be going with and expressed my concern and how upset I was and how sucky of a job that this person came in and did. I'm like, he was medicated, so he was sleeping, so he looked comfortable. You know, she didn't look at his chart, and she's like, she's supposed to look at everything. She knew exactly who I was talking about, because I think that they've been having more than one issue with this lady. I hope she loses her job over it. She sucks at it. You should be trying to, you know, when someone needs to go to inpatient, you should be a little bit more aggressive and make sure. And I guess the lady that I was talking to on the phone said they're supposed to collaborate, like, the doctor's recommendations and his chart and how he is and all that stuff. So the hospital wasn't really that helpful with managing his pain. He was in pain or discomfort for hours upon hours and couldn't sleep. And I had to sleep in his bed at that point, in his hospital bed, and rub his back to calm him down. And I kept calling the nurse and, please help us, he's not well. And that was Monday. And come Monday, I was just like, we need to figure out what to do, and it needs to be done today. I don't know, like, what's going on, but we need to figure out what's going on. And what I was a little upset about was, I guess, another nurse from hospice came, but nobody told us. So we're just twiddling our thumbs, waiting, wondering what's going on. And it's now 2 o'clock, and I need to make a decision. Like, I need to take him home. Like, I don't want him dying in the hospital. That's not what we signed up for. And at least give the man a little bit of dignity. So, So, all of a sudden, around 2 o'clock or something, a lady comes in, and she's the nurse from hospice. And poor Dennis was in pain, you know, in discomfort. And I was talking to her about it, and I was telling her, like, he really needs hospice, inpatient. And I'm like, he is not getting the medication he needs here. And she was even like, she's like, why aren't they giving him, you know, morphine? And I'm like, I don't know, you ask them. And she's like, well, I'm gonna get him to try and give you, you know, that, or recommend that. And they wouldn't give it to him. They felt uncomfortable. But she got him right in. She's just like, yep, he does need to go into inpatient. And I think by like almost 9:30 at night, an ambulance comes Monday night to it, and me and him go together. My car was at home. I went by ambulance with him. I didn't care. I was just like, I'm staying with him until the very end, and I wasn't leaving his side. And that ambulance ride was basically the last thing that Dennis was really, you know, like coherent or talking. Like the conversation was actually about his kids, because in inpatient hospice, you can, I guess, see family 24 hours a day because they're dying. And Dennis was just like not having it. He was just like, nope, I don't want them there that 24 hours a day. He was just like, he's like, they better not. So I said, all right. I said, I will set time limits so they have a certain time that they can come and visit you, so you can, relax and have your own space. And that's what he wanted. So that's what I did for him. And I fought for that for him. And it was important for us all to be in hospice. And really not going to go too much in detail family-wise, like his or mine. I can tell you that all family was there, here and there. But I just was there to help manage his, because I knew Dennis the best, and Dennis doesn't have to talk, and I know if he's sick. I know if he's not well. I know if he's in pain. I know his noises, you know what I mean? And when I saw that he was uncomfortable, I'm like, you have to up his dose. This is not working. He's uncomfortable. And I think the last words he actually did say was JC, but he was, they had to do a catheter. And he you gotta understand, he was out of it, but it was still painful, and he still felt it, and he hated when we say sorry, but we said sorry. And he screamed out my name. And that was really the last thing he said. And I just loved him. That's all I could do. He was getting uncomfortable to the point where I couldn't be in his bed anymore. Like, he couldn't be touched. Like, he could be touched, but he really couldn't be like that. It was actually making it harder for him to breathe. So by that point, I knew it was time to not be in his bed anymore, but to just give him the love and care that he needed. And I was turning him over every 2 hours, or 3 hours, 3 hours, when he got uncomfortable, but it was usually like every 2 hours. And the team there kind of wanted, they really they were so sweet and so nice, and they allowed me to just call the shots, basically. If I needed help, or if I didn't need help, I really just needed them to manage his medication. I could do everything else. At that point, it was like he was dying. There's no reason to bathe him. There's no reason to check him. We just need to make sure we turn him over every 2 hours too. And the thing was, is he would be uncomfortable when they do it, but when I do it, because I'm very patient, and you do the upper body and then the lower body, and you're gentle with them, and it's because it was done with love. How's that for an answer? And they witnessed that, because they went to turn him over, and I heard him, and I woke up from that, and I said, wait, stop. And I'm like, stay here, but let me do it. And they noticed that when I did it, it was a lot more comfortable for Dennis, and they were like, they were amazed at how I did it. That's probably why my body feels the way it does, because I was like lifting this man for 7 months, 8 months, and towards the end I was lifting him multiple times a day, but I had to lift him on my own, and because he couldn't move. So I would help him sit up, and I would help him I'd help him sit up and all that stuff. So he was in hospice for 6 days before he died, or he died on the 6th day of being in hospice. And inpatient hospice, it's usually happened, and you know, I knew, and I told him, I was just like, you know what, I'm here for you, I'm not leaving. I didn't leave, I kept my word. When his family came, I allowed them to see him without me in the room, to give them their last times with their dad. A little late and dollar short, but I did what I needed to do for Dennis. Not really for them, more for Dennis. You know, it's more of a waiting game than anything else, and it's funny because I had a dream of him that night that he was dying, or he died in my dream, and it happened to be that day. Like, so I wake up, and that day, it literally was within maybe 6 hours after I wake up. So I don't remember what time exactly I woke up, but he died at 2:31. But he waited until I came into the room to do it, because that's what he wanted, I guess. And that's really it. That's all I can really talk about. I just wanted to tell you the timeline. So we went from what happened I was talking about at the beginning to this nightmare. And like I said, I'm not really going to go into detail of the stages of grief, as they say. But I thought you would like to know exactly what went on. I was his caretaker 24/7, 7 days a week, from December until July. And even when I was in the hospital, even the hospital was just like, we're not really doing anything. She's doing all the work. And they really just followed my lead because they just knew that I knew him so well. And, you know, let's keep some dignity for him and stuff, you know. So tonight, the reason why I ended up doing this is because I was having a hard time. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. It's really hard for me to go through his stuff. I feel like I'm violating his space. I respected this man greatly, and I know if he was sitting here right now, he'd be like, you know, it's okay. But I can also hear him say, no, don't throw that away. Come on, don't you want to keep that? Oh, no, not that. Well, but I like that. Why'd you get rid of that? But at the same token, I think he knew, like, he said that I could have whatever I wanted, and I could do what I needed to do with whatever I wanted. But it's still pretty hard for me. It's hard to look at pictures. It's hard to look at his stuff or touch his stuff. I just feel like I'm really violating his space, and, you know, you don't know what to get rid of or what to keep or what to do or any of that stuff. And at the same token, you're doing this all alone because he's not with you. So, it's really hard. But what I can say is I wanted to thank you guys, because by doing this video, I mean, I was crying before the video started. I don't know if you were aware of that. And I thought that it was easier just to talk about what just happened in the last year. So, just so you guys are aware, I'm sure you are, when Dennis died, you know, I think I was doing okay for maybe a couple days, but I was really starting to have, I wanted to be alone. I wanted to be home, and I wanted to be alone, and the first night my mom did stay with me the night that Dennis died, but I didn't need that. It's not what I needed at that point. The first night, I would say, yeah, sure, but after that, I needed to do what I needed to do to whatever. and I needed my space in order to do that. And everybody respected that, which was great. And but I was also starting to get suicidal thoughts, and what do I do? And I was starting to get really dysphoric, and I was having a really hard time because I'm like, I really want to transition, but at the same time, I really want to have a kid. And I called the foster care system and told them everything that just happened and what I was planning, and would this be an option for me later on in life. And the answer was yes. Like, my dysphoria was not going to jeopardize possibly doing foster care or foster care to adopt. And that was all I needed to hear, because I was so dysphoric, I wanted to die. And I still have that feeling, but in a different way, I think. Like, that was like, I just want to die. And yeah, I was really struggling. And ODing then, too, so it's not uncommon. Or I'm not surprised that I'm ending up going through it 3 months later. And so I was just like, okay, well, I need to take the energy that I was caring for Dennis, and I need to take that energy and focus it on me. So I started making doctor's appointments, and I'm like, I want to transition, and let's do it, and this, that, and the other thing. And I was doing it, like, let's do it, and making doctor appointments after doctor appointment, and filling my plate, and going through, still organizing the place. And I think that's also why I'm struggling so hard right now, is because I've been freaking unpacking and packing for freaking like a year, but just in this place alone, it's been since March, like since April, I guess, because we got it on the 31st. So I really couldn't unpack a lot of stuff when Dennis was here. We had most of our stuff in storage, and now I'm starting to start going through that stuff, but this place is already full, and I'm like, look, behind me, like, what am I going to do with this stuff? So, I have a box up there that has stuff that's going to be for the free giveaways, and it's going to be all different kinds of stuff in there. And, I'm really looking forward to being able to do that and really connect with people, and people have been, like, fucking awesome. Like, you guys are the best. I got people here, people, Facebook. If you're not on my Facebook, check me out on there. And it's been difficult, and this right here is helping me, so thank you for allowing me to do this. I feel, it's, let's put it this way, okay? When I talk about it on screen, I have less stress, or less panic attacks and less anxiety talking about it. Like, I can talk it more freely than when I'm sitting in front of a counselor, or I'm sitting in front of the PT guy, or the doctor's office, or anybody really. Like, even my friends that have known Dennis, or, I can't talk about it with people. But when I do it like this, it's easier. So this is like therapy